Okay. So do you want a girl who's like a virgin, or like what kind of a girl do you want?
Low body count.
What do you consider low body count? Like under what?
I think that it kind of depends on age. I'm not one of these people who thinks that, if you're 33 and you've got, when you were younger, you racked up some bodies, that you're like an automatically bad person and that you should just be, tossed to the side. That's not how I feel. But yeah, just the lower the better generally.
Okay, but like 5 would be okay, right?
I would be okay with 5. If you're, I don't plan on talking to many 18-year-olds, but if you're 18 and it's 5, maybe that's like more concerning. But if you're 30 and it's 5, I don't think that's that big of a deal.
Okay, so what if you go on a date with a girl, right? Nothing physical happens. A few days later, she goes on another date with a guy and she sleeps with him, and she had a body count of 1. Now her body count is 2. Would that be then acceptable?
Wait, I'm sorry. Could you say that again?
Sure. So let's say you go on a date with a girl, right? You guys have a good date, but nothing physical happens. A few days later, she goes on a date with another guy and she sleeps with him, but her body count's only 1. So now her body count went from 1 to 2. Would then you be okay with that?
No, I wouldn't be okay with that. Not necessarily because of the body count, but because she's actively hooking up with random dudes from the internet.
Okay, fair enough. So I think we covered, in terms of sticking to gender roles, we agree. So I don't think there's any point pursuing that one. Let's get into now hookup culture. So what exactly is your issue with hookup culture?
1 second here. I'm sorry. I think that it is, like we were talking about earlier with the large percentage of women competing over a tiny percentage of men. I don't think that is, beneficial to society at all. I don't think, and we were just talking about body counts a minute ago. I don't think that having lots of sexual partners is good for individuals, and things that are not good for individuals are not good for societies.
So what if hookup culture was more egalitarian, meaning like everyone was getting laid who wanted to? So like there was no like some guys are getting massive amounts of pussy, some guys are getting What if it was like anyone who wants to participate can get laid, right? If it was
that's not the that's not the hang up for me, is that some people aren't getting laid.
So what is
that really? The hang up is I'm sure you've talked about the pair bonding, the damage done to particularly women's ability to pair bond after multiple sexual partners. That's the type of thing that I have the problem with in regards to hookup culture.
Yeah, have you like looked into the science on that?
Somewhat.
Because the science on that is very dubious. It's not a scientific consensus. It
doesn't seem that dubious to me. I mean, I know that there's like a bump in the middle where, abstinence is best. Then there's like a slight bump, but then it like returns completely to form. So I don't know. It just doesn't seem that dubious to me.
Well, I mean, if there was a direct, okay. So you're talking about the Institute of Family Studies survey that was done. Okay, so let's just go off that one. That's not actually what I was talking about, but right. So kind of for anyone who's not familiar with it, this is measuring a woman's chance of divorcing you. So when it's 0, it's like 12%. Then when it goes up to 1, it's like 20%. When it goes up to 2, it's like, I don't know, 30% or something like that. Don't hold me to these numbers. The interesting thing that happens is when it goes from 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 4 to 6, it drops down to like 22%, right? So it drops. And then once it gets to 9s, it bottoms out and starts going up again. So I guess like you would expect, if there's a direct correlation between, pair bonding and body count, that it would always keep going like this. It would either go like this or it would keep going like this. But why would it go like this?
I'm not really sure why that dip is there. Like I said, I don't know why that's there, but the rest of the graph is completely in line. I mean, there's that one anomaly, but then the rest of it plays out exactly like you would expect it to.
Well, it's not one anomaly though. It's body count 3, 4, 5. There's like 7 anomalies.
I'm not looking at the graph right now, so I have no idea. But if I remember correctly, there is like a trajectory to it. There might be dips, there might be peaks and valleys, but there's a general trajectory to it.
Okay, let me ask you this question. What if I showed you like a scientific study from something that really, a journal that you really respect, that you have validity belief, that shows you that there's absolutely no correlation between what's the term? What's the term that you use? Parabonding?
Body count.
Parabonding and body count. What if I showed you that? Would that change your position completely on hookup culture?
No.
So then it's not really about the parabonding for you.
Well, that's a part of it.
Okay. So what are the other parts of it?
1 second here. I don't think that I just don't think that it's good for people's self-esteem. I think that, you get lots of men being rejected, lots of women being, not necessarily rejected physically, but rejected in the sense that a lot of men aren't going to want to be in relationships with them. I don't think it's good in general.
Yeah. So when you say it's not good for self-esteem, where are you getting the information from? Is that anecdotal, or is there some specific study?
Yeah, it's anecdotal. No, it's anecdotal. And I think that there's definitely value to anecdotal evidence. I mean, sure. I think that most people, when I say that hookup culture is not good for a lot of people's confidence, I think that most people just kind of inherently know what I mean by that.
I think I have an idea what you mean, but again, I don't want to straw man your position, so I want to figure out exactly what you believe. Okay, so what kind of anecdotal evidence are we talking about? Like, meaning like you went out and you hooked up with a bunch of girls and you felt like it was bad for your self-esteem, or where is this like information coming from? It was one of your friends. Like, where are you getting this information from?
It's through, like the common sense that when people are rejected, it doesn't make you feel good.
But you said it's anecdotal. You didn't say it's through common sense. So what's the anecdote? Are we referencing your own anecdotes, the anecdotes of your friends? Where are the anecdotes coming from?
The anecdotes are coming from common sense. I mean, it's like
it's not an answer. Anecdotes cannot come from common sense.
Yeah, you can derive an anecdote from the common sense that when people are rejected, it's not good for their self-esteem.
Okay. Let's just pull up the definition of anecdotes, because we're talking about two different things right now. Okay,
we're not though. I mean, like you have a random guy and he gets rejected. Is that good for his self-esteem?
Oh, we can talk about that. But you were using the word, you said your evidence is anecdotal. The definition of anecdote is a short, amusing, or interesting story about a real incident or person. So
so make up a story, a little anecdote about a guy named Jimmy. Jimmy walks up to
Kyle. It has to be about a real person or situation. That's the key word, real.
Okay, so there's this guy named Jimmy. I'm sure that there's been a guy named Jimmy, and he's asked a girl out, and she said no, and that made that affected his self-esteem negatively.
So you don't actually have anecdotal evidence.
Yeah, I do have anecdotal evidence. I have asked girls out and been rejected, and it doesn't feel good. But my point is that comes from common sense. Like, it's obvious that when you get rejected, it negatively affects your self-esteem.
Yeah, we can talk about the common sense part of it. I just want to clarify. Common sense, like justifications, are very different than anecdotal justifications. Anecdotal is like, hey, I did this, or hey, this happened to my friend. That's what anecdotal is.
I know what anecdotal evidence is. I'm saying that
you don't have it.
You don't. It's my point, dude. My entire point is that I don't have to have specific anecdotes, because you know that there are millions of anecdotes that would fit into that category.
No, I don't know that.
Okay. You don't know that when people get rejected, that it negatively affects their self-esteem.
Well, I think that
you don't know that.
Well, I think that some people develop a lower self-esteem from hookup culture and promiscuity. I think for other people, like for myself, for example, it led me to develop a higher self-esteem because I became much more resilient, right? So I became very resilient to rejection. And that led for me to develop a lot of confidence and belief in myself. So I think you go either way. I would need to see some kind of proof that, hookup culture is causing more people to have lower self-esteem than for that to, actually help them. So what common sense is for you is not going to be the same thing as common sense for me, because we have two totally different set of life experiences.
Yeah, I understand that you can take that rejection and use it to build yourself up. But what I was saying is that the anecdotes, you can derive those from common sense. That was the whole point of that. It's like you don't need specific anecdotes of reality. You just know that is the case.
You can't derive anecdotes from common sense. Anecdotes are stories that happen either to you or someone you know. They cannot come from common sense.
You can't. Okay. All right.
Like if I'm trying to make an argument that, for example, smoking is bad, Andrew's like, well, why is smoking bad? Let's say, well, I don't have any scientific evidence, but I have anecdotal evidence that smoking is bad. He's like, okay, well, like, who did it happen to? You, your friend? I'm like, no, I just got it from common sense. That's not me giving him an anecdote. There's nothing anecdotal about that.
You couldn't derive from common sense that there are millions of anecdotes of people smoking and getting lung cancer?
You could potentially come to that conclusion, but then that wouldn't be anecdotal evidence. That would be something that you just imagined.
I would say that is millions of instances of anecdotal evidence.
Well, I could just say, do you see the problem with this line of reasoning? I could say, well, there's a million instances of someone trying hookup culture and having more positive self-esteem. Right? Do you see how that line of thinking doesn't lead us anywhere?
Yeah. So I mean, I can see. I can definitely see what you're saying, but I do think that, like I said, lots of people they have their self-esteem negatively affected by rejection. That seems like a fairly common sense thing. Now, the effect of that rejection, that's open to interpretation. But again, like I said, the negative effect of rejection from self-esteem, that seems like something common sense, and that you could derive millions of anecdotes, from common sense on that.
Sure. And I agree with you that there's probably a lot of cases where, okay, I'm not going to keep harping on that anecdote thing. We can move past that.